Okay, would you give my friend yours, Andrew West, a warm welcome as he comes to teach from Nehemiah chapter 2. And I think he will say this as well, but it feels for me providential that our text for this morning is Nehemiah chapter 2. So, Andrew, take it, brother. Love you.
As I'm getting started, I want you to talk to someone next to you about this question. Did you do everything this summer that you had planned to do? Right? So talk to someone real quick. Did you do everything you had planned this summer? Just keep talking. This is good. Let's go ahead and bring. Hey. So little background while we're here. I am a volunteer here at church. I'm on our staff team. Professionally, I'm a teacher. So if you are a teacher, I know many of you are. This is a teacher's worst nightmare, particularly the teacher who uses PowerPoint only, because without your PowerPoint, you're nothing. So thank you for getting it back up, because I truly don't know what we would do other than talk. Although Jason's done some good preaching for us already today, so thank you. So that was a long time to talk about your summer. How many of you got everything done on your list that you planned this summer? 3 of you. All right. I'm in the same camp. So as Jason talked about, on my list this summer was to try to finish the 14ers. So Jason and I have been climbing them. I have 1 left. My daughter Allie's trying to get all of them. And so we had this ambition, let's get 10 more 14ers. And what I know from our story is that if we don't plan it out, it doesn't happen. So way in May, so this is a screenshot of a text I sent our hiking crew in May. Hey, here is the plan. Put it on your calendars. This is going to be awesome. We didn't do that. Allie and I got 4 of them on 1 trip. That was it. On our list was the 2RC volleyball tournament. How many of you made it to that? Yeah, none of you. We went so far as to go ahead and build the advertisement, the graphic. It was going to be sweet. We made that in April. saying, hey, we're going to do this thing. My daughter, Finley, plays volleyball. I'm like, I want to get her some touches. Allie's now playing volleyball. I'm like, let's have a tournament so we get some touches, have some fun. It didn't happen. The pews. So we have been in this building for 3 or 4 years now. These pews, if you have been here on a hot, sticky day, they stay with you. We have been struggling to know, how do you fix them? Because who has the knowledge of how to fix this? Well, just this summer I had this knowledge, you know who knows this? ChatGPT knows the answer. So I put in the ChatGPT, I said, hey, I'm working on pews that are 120 years old. When it gets hot, people start to sweat. They stick to the pews when they stand up, and sometimes some of the brown finish adheres to their clothes. True. I want to prevent this from happening. How do I do it? And check this out. Yes, it sounds like the old finish in your pews is softening when warmed by body heat and moisture, which is a common problem with older shellac or varnish finishes. You don't need to strip them to bare wood. You do need to seal them off so that it stops transferring and sticking. Here's a practical approach that avoids it. I'm like, yes, this summer is going to be the summer when you stop sticking to the pews. It didn't happen. Just be thankful today is a cool day. Yeah. So there were another list of things that we don't have time to talk about that I had planned to do this summer that simply didn't happen. If I were to show pictorially what my summer kind of felt like, it felt like something like this. I had this plan to grab some peaks. I had this plan to do this volleyball tournament. I had this plan to do the pews, and I had all these other plans. And it feels like they're pulling in all the ways. It feels like, man, I had a good summer. And I will tell you, I did not have a hurried or rushed summer. Many of us have been working for years to better simplify life down, to not be hurried and rushed. I wouldn't explain my summer as hurried or rushed or anxious, but I simply did not do the things that I had intended to do. What's interesting is for the last year, I have been chewing, there's me not doing all the things. I have been chewing on this book called Essentialism. Some of you may have read it. The spoiler, the guts of essentialism is the idea that many of us feel this way, whether it's our time, whether it's our energy, whether it's our focus. It feels like it's doing this. And at the end of a day, at the end of a week, at the end of a month, we look back and we're like, man, what happened to that summer? What happened to that time? And the author, Greg McEwen, makes this case. He says, what if we were to think about our effort, think about our energy, think about it in a different way? What if we chose with intentionality to say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to choose the next thing that's consistent with where I want to be. Then I'm going to choose the next thing that is consistent, that's in a direction. What if I were to choose on purpose an intentionality to my days that would change then how the impact of my month or my year might go down? I am actively wrestling with this idea, and despite being aware and despite having some intentionality, my summer still feels like it's getting away from me. Felt like it got away from me. I still feel like it should be summer. I'm like, Jason keeps asking, when am I going to get that mountain? I'm like, yeah, it's summer. We still got time. It's not. It's middle of September. There is a way. These are my words, not his. There is a way of orienting our days that shapes how we live our lives. How we make decisions each day impacts our life trajectory in some way. And so as I've been chewing on this, and then I open up to Nehemiah 2, which was the text that Jason said, hey, would you teach out of Nehemiah 2? I'm looking, I'm like, holy moly, this is right here. This is right here. This psychology, this book, this popular thing is right there in the truth and the word of God. And I thought, man, that will preach. So that's going to preach. But as Jason has already talked, it's been a week. It's been a week. And it seems like to not recognize that we live in a broken world in desperate need of restoration. To not recognize that would be a travesty. And so this passage in Nehemiah 2 is, man, it's special. We didn't plan out this sermon series knowing that this week would be what it was, and yet it seems so providential. And so what we're going to do today is look at both of these things, which show up just loud and clear in Nehemiah 2. And the way we're going to think about it, the way we're going to land this thing at the end, is this idea that the way that we orient our days shapes the way that we orient our lives. And there is a way that we can orient our lives and our days that we get to participate in the restoration of things that are broken. We get to participate. We don't have to fix everything, but we get to come alongside our good and faithful God who loves us and participate in the healing and the beauty and the restoration of things that were once glorious. So that's where we're going today. That's how we're going to wrap up is revisiting this. So we get to participate in that restoration, and it's beautiful. So we will be in Nehemiah 2 if you would like to turn to Nehemiah 2. Some reminders that Jason talked about last week. As we read the Old Testament, one, we have to be careful. And I would encourage you, if you didn't hear it, to listen to Jason's sermon in its entirety. But if you can only have a little bit of time, listen to the first 10 or 15 minutes when Jason talks about how we ought to read the Old Testament in light of the New Testament. That we risk a misinterpretation when we read the old law, the old covenant, through in light of the reality of the new covenant. Or if we don't read it in light of the new covenant, in light of Jesus, then we miss some things. So why do we read the Old Testament at all? Well, part of it is that the Bible is telling, in its entirety, from Genesis to Revelation, is telling this grand story of the restoration of all things. Starting in Genesis 3, which is the fall of man, which is the serpent, all the way to the end of the Bible, which we are still living in, still waiting for the return of Christ. We have this grand narrative of restoration. And we can read the Old Testament through that lens, and it's beautiful. And today, what we'll see is that we get to see through the stories of God's people living in faithfulness in a broken world. We get to see glimpses of this restoration. We get to see the character of God show up in people. We get to see glorious reflections of a world as it ought to be. Today we get to do that as we read Nehemiah. So if you want to turn to Nehemiah, if you haven't already, what I want to do first is give you a high-level summary of the entire chapter. It's fairly long. We're not going to look at every word on it. So I want to give you a high-level summary so you see what it's about. Then we're going to do some history. I want to give you some context to understand what is happening in Nehemiah 2. And then we're going to get into some of the text to see what we can see in Nehemiah's life as it relates to the restoration of beautiful things. So here's the overview of Nehemiah 2. So Nehemiah is a cupbearer for the king of Persia. And he asks for the king for permission to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the city walls. So if you were here last week, to bring you up to the story, Nehemiah is in Persia. He is an Israelite, a Jew, who has been exiled and is living in Babylon. And now, no longer Babylon, is living in Persia. He asks some fellow Israelites, hey, what is the status of things in Jerusalem? And they say, the city walls have crumbled down. The gates have been burned down. And Nehemiah weeps for this. He weeps for this. And so he spends in chapter 1 4 months praying. And that's what Jason walked us through last week. So we pick up the story today with Nehemiah engaging the king around, hey, this wall is in shambles. I would like to go and rebuild it. We're going to see that the king agrees, and he sends Nehemiah, gives him some military protection, and letters of support to help him navigate the journey there and to get supplies on the way, including timber, to help rebuild these walls. And then we're going to see that Nehemiah will arrive in Jerusalem. He's going to survey the wall to see it for himself, to see what's broken, and then grab the folks who are living there and say, let's build this thing. So that is the whole story of chapter 2. We're going to spend a good chunk of our time in this first part of the story. So are you ready for some history time? I was a high school science teacher. This is not science. So if you're any high school history teachers? Good. All right. So this is modern day. Middle East. This is where the story takes place. I think it's really important to look at some of the names of these countries just to remember who some of the players are. So we have names like Egypt, Libya, Sudan, Jordan, Syria, Turkey, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. These are names that we know. Sometimes when we read biblical text, we forget kind of where we are because we have different kinds of names. So I'm going to take you back 2000 BC. So we're going about 4,000 years ago. The map was much simpler. Fewer lines, fewer people, and different names. At that time, this is the first kind of recording in non-biblical texts of this place, not called Jerusalem, but now called, at that time, called Rusalemium-ish. It is a city-state of Egypt. So Egypt at this time, they have already built some massive pyramids, some sphinxes. They are rocking and rolling. And there are places who are not Egyptian. They're not controlled by Egypt, and yet a city-state recognizes there is some utility to partnering with a larger group so that we have protection, so that we have resources. And so they give funding to Egypt in return for protection. So this is Rusalemim, and it is Canaanite, so it's in the land of Canaan. Maybe it looks something like this. This is an artist's rendition of maybe what it is. It started off as a small settlement, and then grew. And over time, walls were constructed to help protect it. Don't know exactly what it looked like, but it was there for approximately 1,000 years under Canaan oversight. Presumably it grew larger and larger. Here's what we know. Here's where we pick up the story in the Bible. So in 2 Samuel 5, David has been anointed king. And David is early in his kingship, and it says this: David and his men marched to Jerusalem to attack the Jebusites who lived there. David captured the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David. David then took up residence in the fortress and called it the city of David. He built up the area around it from the terraces inward. So, Rusalemium now becomes Jerusalem. I don't have to say it anymore. And maybe it looks something like this. So, again, artist rendition based on archaeological dig sites. Just to highlight a couple things. So, what was the citadel is now David's palace. So it's built on top of this. This area holds deep meaning to the Israelites. Mount Moriah is where it's built, and that's kind of up and to the right. And it says that David built kind of from these terraces, kind of on that outside, inward to strengthen it, the city of David. David has a son, Solomon. Solomon is wise. Solomon is wealthy. Solomon expands Jerusalem. Something like this. Show that again. Look at that. Expands both the walls and expands the splendor and the glory and the majesty of this place. Builds the temple. First, we have now a temple. Now the Ark of the Covenant lives and resides in the temple, and the Israelites revere this place. This is the place for all of Israel. Solomon builds a royal complex, a house. It is spectacular. So what I want to try to do, I Googled to try to figure out what maybe was it like. Because as I read this account, it's kind of hard to like get a sense for like, is it like what's the big deal? I found some artist renditions of maybe what it was like. And I added some music because I think this is the feel of what it's like. You're an Israelite, you're going to this place, and you're just like, this is epic. It says that the temple was built with wood planks, cedar on all surfaces that were then laid entirely with gold. The floor, the ceiling, the walls. Describes the windows and the light pouring in on it. Can you imagine how beautiful and wonderful it must have been? It is a place of like glory and glitter. And it says this: when the priests withdrew from the holy place, a cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their services because the cloud, for the glory of the Lord, filled his temple. Whew. Seems dramatic on purpose. Because when we read about Nehemiah being sad about the temple and the walls being destroyed, I'm just like, I don't get it. It doesn't stir me in some way, but we trying to put ourselves in it. It was glorious. It was spectacular, not just in its architecture, not just in its design, but in what it represented for the Israelites. The glory of the Lord residing in that place. It was something special. Well, Solomon dies, has a son who becomes king, and from then on, things aren't so great. Israel is the original 12 tribes of Israel, Judah, Jacob, and the northern 10 tribes are kind of miffed because all of this building, all of this conquest, requires people, it requires finances, and they feel like they are contributing more than they want, more than they like, and so they talk to Solomon's son, who's now king, and say, hey, we're not into this right now. We would like to change this. And that king doubles down and says, no, you will continue this. And they're like, deuces, we're out of here. We leave. So we see a separation. The 10 northern tribes separate from the 2 southern tribes. And we have Israel and we have Judah. And it doesn't get any better. So both fall into lack of really good leadership, lack of clear vision, and by 597 BC, both have been overtaken by first the Assyrians and then the Babylonians. I read something. Israel has changed hands approximately 44 times in its history. Isn't that wild? It's wild. Anyway, so it's changed hands a couple times. We're getting close to done with the history lesson here. Here's what's important for this. So during this time, the Babylonians now have control of the area. And this is the first group that says, you know what, Israelites, you must leave Jerusalem. You must leave the city. And so they exile them. They send them to. But what's fascinating, this is under King Nebuchadnezzar. And there are lots of ways that you can conquer a people group. Right? One option would be you come in and you just annihilate everybody, just kill everybody. And we see that biblically happen sometimes. But that's not the approach of the Babylonians. Their approach is, let's grab leaders, let's grab the thinkers, let's grab the artists, and let's exile them and put them in Babylonian schools. Let's put them in Babylonian workplaces. And what will happen in a couple generations is their offspring will become Babylonian. Their culture will be diluted and lost by them being enculturated into Babylonian culture. So that's what's happening. And so when you read of people like Daniel in the lion's den and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, this is that group who's been exiled. Well, Babylon, while strong, finds yet another stronger adversary, and they are. Well, not yet. Sorry, I forgot about that. So they feel this like let's send people and indoctrinate them. And 10 years later, there is still a faction of people who are left in Jerusalem who are putting up quite a fight. And Babylon says, okay, I think we're done. I think we're done with you. And they burn Jerusalem to the ground. So they burn it, they destroy the walls, they destroy the temple, and it's in ruins. Glory is destroyed. This glorious, wonderful place is in ruins. Well, Babylon lasts for a bit, but about 30, 40 years later, they are overtaken. The Babylonians are by another name that's hard for me to pronounce, and so they're also known as the First Persian Empire, which is a lot easier for me. So the Persians take over, and they have a different approach. This is under Cyrus the Great. You can read about this in the book of Ezra. So Ezra is before Nehemiah, and what you're going to see in Ezra is that under Cyrus the Great, there's a different philosophy of how do we conquer a people. Instead of pulling them out and indoctrinating them, Cyrus the Great's philosophy is we actually allow people to thrive in their place. The idea is that as people thrive, as people produce goods, as people grow crops, as people will gain income, they will then grow the greatness of the empire and return a portion of that greatness to the king or the emperor. And so we see a different philosophy. And And Israelites are allowed to return to Jerusalem to start to rebuild their culture. It's pretty fascinating when you look at just how politics and the approach changes all of the time. You feel that sometimes even for us? So we see in Ezra, Israelites returning to rebuild the temple. And then that picks up our story today. So King Artaxerxes is the successor to King Cyrus. Same general philosophy, let people return. And so that brings us to Nehemiah, who is saying, well, hey, folks have returned to rebuild the temple, but the walls of Jerusalem are still in shambles. There is no protection, there's no security, the gates are down. Can I go and rebuild? Okay. So that's going to be where we're going to pick up the story. Jason left off last time with the recognition that Nehemiah is a cupbearer. So I assumed that the cupbearer, this is a person who drinks the wine or the drink before giving it to the king. So when I think about what are the qualifications to do that, I figure someone who has like a low level tolerance of like toxins seems like a good qualification, right? We want to choose the most dispensable people. Hey, make sure you drink this. I want you to be super sensitive. So if it's laced with something, boom, you're out. We'll just grab the next one and put them in there. As it turns out, that's not what cupbearers were. It's not how it worked. In fact, here's what my research found. Cupbearers had to be trustworthy and loyal since they protected the king from assassination by poison. They had to be attractive, since they often stood in the king's presence, similar to attendants in other royal courts, and they had to be educated. So here's what I want you to do. Look to your left and look to your right. Let's do it. And then be like, oh my gosh, you could have been a cupbearer. You have to say it. Oh my gosh, you could have been a cupbearer. Yeah, I was trying to think of who do I want to pick on? Who do I want to say, hey, you could have been a cupbearer? And I was like, there's nobody in here that couldn't have been a cupbearer. Think about, you are smart people. You are good-looking people. And there's not one of you who I wouldn't trust. You could have at another time in another place. This could be you. So the point for this is that Nehemiah is a guy, a regular person at a particular time and a particular place. I think it's really important. Okay, so with all of that, let's dive right into the text. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1. Early the following spring, in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, I was serving the king his wine. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. And he is. For 4 months, he has been praying. And he has been in tears. And he has been grieving the loss of this thing that was glorious, that was beautiful, that represented so much, and is now in ashes. It's now in ashes. By way of comparison, this is my first house in Silver Cliff, Colorado. I bought it the year after I graduated college. I spent 2 years renovating it on a teacher's salary. It took 2 years, not because I'm slow. It took 2 years because it takes a long time to save up any money when you're making $26,000 a year. But I got her done. I met my wife while living in that house, carried her across the threshold when we were married, proverbially, and it was our first place. Something about your first place, man. Everything in there, I had like perfectly like pine, everything, wood stain. I wish I had any pictures of the inside. I don't. Custom cabinetry. It was nice, wasn't it? A couple years ago, Jason and I were in Westcliff hiking 14ers, and I was like, hey, let's swing by my old house. And I snapped a pic of it. Oh, that's what my heart did. That's what my heart did. You're like, this wasn't my thing. Oh, what happened? Okay, so full transparency. I didn't have a picture of the original outside of it. This was a ChatGPT. So it may have not been quite as pristine. I guarantee the lawn was nothing. It didn't have. There's no one in Westcliff has grass. But it was closer to this. And when I see it, there's like I think on a small level, That's perhaps what Nehemiah is feeling. From, oh man, this place that represents so much, to, oh. But on a more serious level, and applied to our day today, there is this deep sadness that we all feel when something that was once glorious is lost. Maybe not a building for you. Maybe not a wall for you. Maybe not a house for you. But it doesn't take long. You don't have to open the news and read very far to see a world where things that were once glorious. I mean, think about it, relationships, communities. I could just have a long list of things that were once beautiful, things that should be beautiful that are no longer. This is the idea. There are so many of examples that I could choose from. I wanted to choose one that just for me, that every time I look at our world and I see brokenness, this is the thing that just wrecks me, and it's this. When I see a father trying to help get his family to safety. These are refugees coming out of Syria. When I see this, it just says, no, it shouldn't be that way. It's my version of this. It should not be that way. That there is something that was once glorious, a father who can care and protect for his kids. Who can't? Who is broken, that just wrecks me and says it shouldn't be that way. This is the feeling of Nehemiah having right now. He's having that feeling for his people, for this place. And he says, the king says, why are you looking so troubled? Because he's feeling the loss of this beautiful thing that is no more. And so he responds. He says, then I was terrified, but I replied. What is your thought on why he was terrified? Any ideas?
Don't bring the king bad news.
Yeah, you don't bring the king bad news. So as I've read commentaries on it, that is part of it. Anytime, remember, this guy is chosen just like you for your good looks and your education, but there's an expectation that most days you are consistent and rather cheery and chipper. Is my paraphrase of what I learned. And so there is a realization that if I come with a bad demeanor, perhaps not my best self, that there could be the loss of something like my job or my life, perhaps. There's also another reality, and that's this. Under Cyrus the Great, this philosophy is let people return to their place was widely held, and that is the story that happens in Ezra. Well, when there's a change of kings, there is some murmuring that starts to happen. There's some chattering that starts to happen that gets to King Artaxerxes. It says, those who are already in Jerusalem, who are rebuilding the temple, they're planning to revolt against you. They are planning to try to overthrow you in some ways. And so there is rumor that the Israelites are planning, they're up to something nefarious. And so politically, he knows that, hey, this is risky because he might think that I am trying to pull a fast one on him. But he replies, long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. Then the king asked, imagine he's been praying for 4 months about the situation, and this is the day. The king asks, well, how can I help you? What do you do in that situation? What is your response in life when the thing that has grieved you for so long is now in front, and someone says, well, what or how can I help you? And you're terrified. Here's a response. With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied, if it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. He makes his request. He says, send me to go and rebuild. Like waiting, was that the thing to say? And the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked, "Are you crazy?" No. The king asked, "Well, how long will you be gone?" We're practical. "Nehemiah, we love you. You're awesome. We need you. How long will you be gone? When will you come back?" And after I told him how long it would be, the king agreed to my request. How awesome. I also said to the king, "If it please the king, let me have letters addressed to the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories on my way to Judah." So I need safe passage. "And please give me a letter addressed to Asaph, the manager of the king's forest, instructing him to give me timber. I will need it to build and make beams for the gates of the temple fortress, for the city walls, and for a house for myself." So for 4 months, he has been praying and he has been thinking, when this moment comes, I know exactly what I need to ask for. And the king granted these requests because the gracious hand of God was on me. When you look at this story, it has this flow to it that goes like this. Nehemiah has this deep sadness for the loss of something glorious. And he steps in to participate in the restoration of that glorious thing. Through a courageous, risky, terrified, trembling approach, he steps into the restoration of that glory. And how and why does he have that confidence? In part, because he's aware that the gracious hand of God is on him. The subtext for our sermon series in Nehemiah is every story whispers his name. Every story, the story of Nehemiah, points to a bigger, broader story. So let's take this and let's fast forward to the end. Revelation 21, last book of the Bible, second to last chapter says this. "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband." When scholars look at this, they think that holy city is both the people of God, the bride of Christ, us, and a place, a literal new Jerusalem. But here's what's awesome about that new. Not new as in brand new, but new as in renewed, made new, transformed, restored to glory. A people restored to glory. A place restored to glory. When you look at the world around us, does this make your heart leap just a little bit? The thought that whatever the new world looks like, that there will be places where we can go that now are terrifying. I look at like a school place, a place that ought to be a place where we feel safe and secure, and we say, this is not right. To see that it's restored towards glory. That we as a people love and trust and care for each other. Isn't that exciting? And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them. He'll be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eye. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain." Do you let yourself go there ever? Think about the end of the story. Where these things that we have just come to accept, that there will be no more. The story says it will all be restored. And we get to be part of that restoration. He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." those things that grieve us, we get to participate and partner with our good God in the restoration of their glory. And the gracious hand of our God is on us. When I think about participating in that restoration, I think about John 15:16. Jesus says this, "You did not choose me, but I chose you." I chose you. And appointed that you should go and bear fruit that will last. We get to participate. Here's another one. Ephesians. Lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. You're not random. You're not just another face in the crowd. You have been called and chosen and seen by God to partner with him in the restoration of all things. Every story whispers his name. At the end of the story, Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem. City surveys the city walls. You can read it, but basically rides around several times in the middle of the night, and then finds the Israelites who are living there and says, "Hey, we're going to do this." So I want to pick up the story right there. It says this, "And then I said to them," to the Israelites, "You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins. Its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. And they replied, "Let us start rebuilding." Two Rivers Church, let us start rebuilding. We look at this broken world around us, and the gracious hand of our Father is on us. He says, let's start rebuilding. Today. Today. If there's a deep sadness in you about the world around you, we get to participate in the restoration of that glory with each other. And the gracious hand of our Father is on us. Let's pray. God, thank you. Thank you that you love us. Thank you that in the midst of a broken world, a world that we know and have seen glorious parts, that we have a glimmer of what it could look like, and we see it in ruins and we see the ashes. Oh, I pray that you would teach us. Teach us what does it look like to listen and to trust your words that we have been called. That the gracious hand, your gracious hand is upon us. And that we get to partner with our brothers and sisters in restoring. Give us a deep awareness. Give us a deep sensitivity to the brokenness around us, and help us lean forward with courage to say yes, to take a step, to be courageous where we need, and to be patient and to pray where that's required, to lean into an absolute confidence in your goodness and in your grace and in your promise that you are restoring and making all things new. We love you. We thank you in Christ's name. Amen.